Practice 21, relinquishing attachment to sense pleasures. Sense pleasures are like salt water. The more you partake of them, the more your craving will increase. Therefore, when something arouses attachment, to abandon it immediately is the practice of a bodhisattva. So here, the notion of relinquishing attachment to the sense pleasures, there are said to be two classic approaches to this. One is reducing craving and access to sense pleasures by going into strict retreat or monastic life. However, the householder or worldly practice, or practice of people in the world, is not to give up the sense pleasures, but to give up attachment to them, to see them as beautiful, illusory forms, meaning forms of experience that cannot be possessed or grasped. So when the verse says sense pleasures are like salt water, it's not referring to the fact that we can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. But of course, salt water has the quality of no matter how much you drink it, it doesn't quench your thirst. And in the same way, when we chase after external objects of happiness, no matter how much we acquire them or chase them, there's always a dissatisfaction that we feel. And this is the term dukkha, or dissatisfaction, sometimes translated as suffering. The idea that in life there is suffering is the first noble truth. And the second noble truth is that that suffering is caused by grasping or attachment. And in particular, attachment is confused about what brings happiness. The more we partake of this kind of dualistic grasping at external objects of happiness, the more we need to grasp. It's kind of the similar notion in addiction. The more that we take a certain substance, the more we need to use to feel the same benefits. We become kind of immune to the intoxication or the sort of benefit of or reason that we're self-medicating with that substance, and it gets out of hand, and then we have health problems and social problems. So therefore, when something arouses attachment, to abandon it immediately is the practice of a bodhisattva. Here it's back to the classic use of mindfulness and awareness, identifying when something is arousing attachment. And here, attachment means the grasping at an object or person or situation as a genuine cause of our own happiness. And it's a mistaken perception, because when we feel, say, what in modern psychology is often called attachment theory, and I like to translate it in Buddhist circles as bonding theory. But when we feel securely bonded to a caregiver, a parent, or a lover, a friend, or a family member, we know that we can rely on that connection reasonably, and that there's a quality of safety, that we feel co-regulated in our nervous system when we're with that person. They don't activate our trauma response of fight or flight. We actually feel safe enough to engage in relationship. But when we notice we are feeling bonded with something, that's actually a good sign, a sign of feeling safe. When something arouses attachment, or you could say grasping or clinging, we know that there's a feeling of insufficiency or unworthiness inside of ourselves. And because of that, we're looking out there to get something to take care of us, and we abandon ourselves in search out there for the cause of our happiness, which, according to the Buddha, it's not possible to do that. Or one could search and grasp outwardly as long as one chooses, but they will not find a relief from dissatisfaction or suffering. Now, the notion of abandoning something immediately is interesting. Sometimes we think of the antidotes in practice as something is, going on, and we need to find the antidote to the problem we're having. Something is, difficult for us, and so we need to find what is it that we can do to change our relationship. Well, in the case of attachment, We must identify in our body the somatic signals with mindfulness and awareness that tell us, oh, I'm getting graspy or clingy, and I'm feeling like somehow I'm not worthy and something out there is worthy, and if I could only possess it or get it, then I'll be fine. When we notice this, the reason the text says immediately is because even if we just sort of wait a little while, the energy and momentum of passion picks up, and we're so far in the process that it's as if, well, now you're asleep, you're going to dream, and then in the morning you can try again. So once we get too far into the emotion, it's difficult to stop it. However, if very quickly we identify our sense of lack and something out there, we can feel that, recognize it, and then begin to practice the relinquishing of attachment. Now, how do we do that? Relinquishing attachment to sense pleasures, again, doesn't mean shutting our eyes, covering our ears or mouth like those monkeys, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Of course, it's not that simple, and thank goodness, because the sense pleasures are part of our brilliance and part of the goodness of our world. So it's the attachment that we have to external objects or situations or energies in our perception that we forget we have everything we need. We forget a feeling of sufficiency or contentment. And the Tibetan word chokse for contentment means knowing what is sufficient. So really, when we feel ourselves, when we drop into our own heart and we drop into our own body and we allow the senses to shine on their own, but we don't reach out with our mind at objects through projection and grasping, we can feel a sense of contentment because we start to feel ourselves leaving, then we come back. And when we come back into our heart and into our torso and into the center of our body, this is why we have the term centered, by the way, because it means we're returning to our natural, rightful place at the center of our universe. Not in the sense of being more important than everyone else, but everyone is the atomic sun with the orbiting electron or planets around them. They are the center of their own mandala because they are the empty perceivers, or the perceiver that has the nature of Buddha, or emptiness, empty nature. And therefore we can rest in our nature, in the centerless center, if you will, and therefore attachment can be seen through as a dream. And then we can enjoy the senses and the dream lucidly, knowing that it's a dream, and knowing that we don't have to mistake anything that we experience as either other than us or more important than us, that we can rest in the middle way and feel like we're part of it. It is also not so solid or graspable, nor are we. And then we can ride the waves or enjoy the journey of relinquishing attachment, which isn't actually giving up something we want. It's what it sounds like. It's actually giving up something we don't want, which is to be hooked, drawn away from our center, and lose our contentment.